I'd like to talk about how insurance companies value the life of a person who has died as a result of an accident. Number one, you're going to have to be looking at the medical expenses that were incurred from the accident itself. Was the person maimed, severely injured, or was it just killed? So if a person incurs a lot of expenses and has to be treated over a period of time because of the injuries he suffered from the accident, that has to be taken into account. And oftentimes you do a day in the life of videos to show what medical expenses or other expenses will be incurred for the rest of the person's life if he's going to continue living as a disabled person. The next thing, of course, is if a person is deceased as a result of the collision, what were the funeral expenses for the burial of the person who was injured or killed as a result of the accident? And of course, the other is the pain and suffering as a result of the death. Did a person die having to endure the pain of a horrible death, such as being burned alive or crushed to death, something of that nature? Those horrible pain and suffering damages have to be taken into consideration, and frequently they can be very, very substantial. It just depends on the way the person died. How was he injured? What caused his death? Another point to consider is what will be the future income that will be lost as a result of his death. Was he a doctor, a nurse, a teacher, whatever? His potential for income lost for the remainder of his natural life. And there are mortuary tables that we use to determine how much longer a person is expected to live depending upon his present age at the time of his death. And of course, the other is a loss of consortium to the spouse, helping the spouse around the house. Consortium is that element of damages that is tied to the spouse of that person who was killed, and the value that person was to that person's spouse, and the companionship of the family members, mentorship of the family members. Some of the liability issues that are taken into consideration by insurance companies. Number one is going to be, who was at fault for this person's death? Was it an individual, or was it a corporation or a company that caused a dangerous condition to exist on its premises, for example, and the person, as a result of the dangerous condition on the corporation's premises, resulted in that man's death, or that female's death? Were there other people who were partially at fault for the unfortunate accident that caused a person to be killed? Was that person comparatively negligent? Were several people as a result of the accident the cause? Was it one person, two people, three people, or was it a corporation or more than one corporation? Was it a design defect that you would expect an engineer to be able to point to and say, this design defect of this particular equipment caused this man's death? I represented a family one time of the husband and father who was killed at 30 years of age working in a factory. And the machine he was operating on had a bar across the front of it to turn the machine off if he was to fall into it. Well, the company that owned the machine took that bar off. And of course, here in Georgia, you have a workers' compensation insurance that takes care of those kind of injuries. So we had to go after the manufacturer of the machine, because they made a machine that could be disabled. The safety features could be disabled. And it was as a result of those safety features that were designed by the manufacturer of the machine being faulty, we were able to go after and sue the manufacturer of the machine, and not just the company that bought the machine for use by that employee. In this particular case, the deceased fell into the machine and was wrapped around some huge rollers, and he was crushed to death. It was a very, very horrible death. And we were able to sue the manufacturer of the maker of the machine that caused the machine to be rendered unsafe and still operate. If the manufacturer of that machine had made the machine or manufactured the machine or designed the machine in such a way that if that safety feature was disabled, the machine wouldn't work anymore, then the man would be alive today. But that's not the case. The manufacturer did not make the machine so that safety devices being disabled, it could still be used. And so that was the reason we were able to sue the manufacturer of the machine. There are a number of things that need to be taken into consideration. As you can see, we've already talked about a few of them. There's a lot more detail that we need to go into whenever it comes to fleshing out each one of these elements. But these are some of the major points that you have to consider when you have a wrongful death case and you're trying to determine how much or what will be the value of that person's life had he not been killed as a result of that unfortunate accident. Thank you.